That wasn't a basketball player confronting me. That was a parent. That was a father.
LeBron James is no stranger to the spotlight, but this moment felt different. Courtside at a Lakers game, surrounded by thousands of fans and cameras, he confronted a well-known sports commentator with a message that sent shockwaves through the sports world. "You got to stop talking about my son." His tone was firm, his expression unshaken. This wasn't just an NBA superstar speaking. This was a father protecting his child. The confrontation didn't happen at the end of the game, as many assumed, but in the third quarter, the commentator, seated near the Lakers bench, had been discussing LeBron James for months. Some called it analysis. Others saw it as unnecessary scrutiny. LeBron had clearly reached his breaking point. When their eyes met, there was no mistaking the intensity behind his words. "That's my son," he repeated, his voice unwavering. There was no debate, no back and forth, just a father drawing a line. The commentator later admitted he had no intention of addressing the incident publicly until he woke up to see it had gone viral, with ESPN executives urging him to respond.
I thought long and hard about this over the last few hours because I had no intentions, Molly, of talking about this at all.
Yeah.
And the reason why is because it was a one-on-one, I wouldn't say a conversation, but it was a one-on-one confrontation. But then I wake up and everybody from ESPN and my agent and everybody else were sending me that this thing had gone viral. And so ultimately it was unavoidable, and that is why I have to discuss it now. That wasn't a basketball player confronting me. That was a parent. That was a father.
He took to the airwaves, insisting that his comments about Bronny were never meant as a personal attack. He claimed he was speaking on the pressures young athletes face, not targeting the James family specifically. But the real conversation wasn't about what was said that night. It was about the broader issue of media scrutiny and its impact on athletes' families. LeBron has always been fiercely protective of his children, and his influence over Bronny's basketball career is undeniable. Some argue that his presence adds unfair pressure, making Bronny's journey more difficult than it needs to be. Others believe that any father with LeBron's platform would do the same. The confrontation reignited a long-standing debate about nepotism in sports. Bronny's path to the NBA was always going to be highly scrutinized, but when he was drafted by the Lakers, questions exploded. Was it purely on merit, or was it orchestrated behind closed doors? Executives and scouts had mixed feelings. Some praised his talent, while others privately suggested that his selection was more about business than basketball. And as his rookie season unfolded, the numbers told a complicated story. His early stats were underwhelming, and the noise around him only grew louder. The sports commentator defended his stance, arguing that his critiques were never about Bronny as an individual, but about the environment LeBron created around him. LeBron marketed himself as a father helping his son get into the league, he said. That changes the conversation. LeBron never wavered. He wasn't about to apologize for supporting his son. From day one, he made it clear that Bronny's success was a priority, and if that made people uncomfortable, so be it. But was his presence ultimately helping or hurting? Would Bronny be able to carve out his own legacy, or would he always be in the shadow of his father's towering greatness? As the controversy raged on, the discussion spilled beyond sports talk shows and social media debates. Parents weighed in, seeing LeBron's actions as the ultimate act of fatherly love. Some admired how he used his influence to open doors for his son, while others questioned if Bronny was being robbed of the chance to prove himself independently. Even former NBA players chimed in, offering their perspectives on the challenges of having a legendary father while trying to forge one's own path. Shaquille O'Neal, who knows a thing or two about raising sons in the basketball world, sided with LeBron. As a father, you do whatever it takes to help your kids succeed. If people got a problem with that, that's their issue, not yours. Others, like Charles Barkley, were more critical. At some point, the kid has to stand on his own. You can't shield him forever. Meanwhile, Bronny himself remained quiet on the issue. He continued showing up, putting in work at practice, and focusing on his game. But the pressure was undeniable. Every missed shot, every off night was met with a flood of commentary. Was he really NBA material, or was he only there because of his last name? The Lakers organization found itself in an awkward position. While LeBron was the face of the franchise, they also had a responsibility to develop Bronny fairly. Some within the front office reportedly felt that the situation had become a distraction, but no one was willing to say it outright. The tension was there, though, and it wasn't going away anytime soon. For LeBron, the controversy wasn't just about his son, it was about control. His entire career had been defined by his ability to dictate his own narrative, to silence critics through sheer dominance. But this time, the situation wasn't in his hands. He couldn't make shots for Bronny. He couldn't shield him from every headline. He could only do what any father would: be there, protect, and push forward. As the season progressed, Bronny started showing showing glimpses of potential. A standout game against a top team earned him praise, and even some of his biggest doubters had to admit he was improving. But the scrutiny never fully disappeared. Would it ever? Could he ever step out of his father's shadow? Or was his career always going to be measured against an impossible standard? Off the court, the conversation grew even more complex. Interviews, podcasts, and debates about Bronny's role in the NBA began to shift from skepticism to genuine curiosity. Analysts started to break down his game without the immediate comparison to LeBron. Some argued that the initial pressure had worked against him, making every step of his development feel like a referendum on nepotism rather than an organic progression. Others, however, maintained that if Bronny wanted to be taken seriously, he needed to prove himself beyond a few good games. In the midst of it all, LeBron remained vocal. He defended his son at every turn, but also encouraged him to embrace the challenge. "You gotta earn it," he told Bronny during a post-game moment caught on camera. "Block out the noise and hoop." And in many ways, that was the best advice he could give. The world would always have an opinion. The media would always dissect every move. The only thing Bronny could control was his work ethic and his performance. The pressure wasn't just external, though. Behind the scenes, Bronny wrestled with the weight of expectations. Was he playing for himself, or was he playing to prove something to everyone else? Was he doing this because he loved the game, or was he simply carrying on the legacy that had been placed on his shoulders since childhood? As the season continued, he faced highs and lows. There were games where he shined, showing flashes of brilliance that hinted at his potential, and there were nights where he struggled, where the weight of it all seemed to catch up to him. Each moment added another layer to his story, making it clear that his journey wouldn't be a smooth one. Through it all, the conversation around Bronny evolved. It was no longer just about whether he deserved to be in the NBA. It became about the reality of growing up in a world where expectations are set before you even have a chance to define yourself. It was about the intersection of family, fame, and personal ambition. LeBron had made it clear where he stood. He would fight for his son, support him, and use his influence to help him. But he couldn't play the game for him, and Bronny knew that. The question was never whether he had a right to be there. It was whether he had what it took to stay. For now, the debate rages on. But one thing remains certain. LeBron James made sure that when it came to his son, the world knew exactly where he stood. And whether you agree with him or not, that kind of devotion is something that can't be ignored. As the season unfolds, one thing is clear. This is just the beginning of Bronny James' story, and the world will be watching every step of the way.